Welcome to the Stories Are Soul Food podcast, presented by Cannonball Books, the kids' fiction imprint of Cannon Press.
So here we are. Welcome to SASP episode 81. Is that what it is?
That is what it is.
Episode 81. We've been doing this 81 times. We should actually be good at it by now, but we're only getting worse.
Well. Yeah.
Please review us on Yelp.
Your favorite neighborhood dining experience.
Yeah.
Outdoor seating.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So here we are in episode 81. I've got something I want to talk about at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not quite ready, nor have I successfully explained to you the concept that you keep referring to. So when we're off camera and off microphone, I'll talk about that.
I got someone asking questions about what I think you want to do. So you're jiving.
Perfect.
Chiming.
And then I could start by saying that last night or yesterday, I wasted a huge amount of time at the AT&T store. And it made me think that given that basically the entire Western world now has a phone, that there has to be a better way when everybody goes to activate a phone or to upgrade a phone, get a new phone. Given that we're all doing this, you'd expect there to be like a pretty quick, efficient way to do this. But about 4 hours in, I left and because I had a Zoom call that I couldn't miss. Then I just abandoned all technology and fled to squat.
To activate a phone?
To get a new, my phone stopped working. And so I went to get a new phone.
Okay.
And, it had already been backed up. Everything was current. And it was 4 hours. And I actually left my wife there. She did a 5th hour.
Good job, Heather.
Yeah. I was like, this is the worst. But once I got my new phone and I reconnected with the world, I was adding all my logins because nothing actually transferred. Nothing. It's one of those things like, do you want to transfer all your passwords and log in? Yes, I do. And then none of them do. So
they're like, that's nice.
So I was trying really hard to remember how to log into Twitter. And I was trying really hard to remember all these different passwords and it's the worst. But anyway, I log into Instagram. And I haven't had to log into Instagram in forever. And in doing so, I discovered that people have been sending me messages for a very long time. and there's apparently like different folders. This just tells you how little I care about social media. So there's different folders of primary, general, and
so if no one's reached out to you before, they go to a different spot.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, oh, like here's some questions. And so I read one from a mother that was related to a SASP episode. And I was like, oh man, this is terrible. I need to answer this question. And so I did in a short message. So I was like, hopefully this isn't too late, but we should definitely talk about this. But I also discovered I started trying to answer some. So this is just kind of a general apology to anybody who's tried to reach out to me on Instagram. I started trying to answer some, and then I was like, oh, cool. There, I did it. And then it was like, it just filled in the new ones. And I realized, oh gosh, people have been doing this for a long time. There was this massive accumulation. So any of you listeners who happen to have gotten a random response from me last night to something you sent in like 12 weeks ago or 16 weeks ago, it's like, that's why.
They just assumed you didn't want to answer.
Yeah. Just know that it's incompetence that I didn't know how. Nor do I really have the time to keep up with that volume. But at first when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's like 6 to 8 people. Then it was like, it's hundreds of people. I can't do this. But the question was about nightmares and a kid, a 4.5-year-old who is having recurring nightmares about shadows, a shadow monster,
right,
and being chased by a shadow. So we can start by just answering this question very, very quickly.
Nice.
For any of you parents out there who have kids dealing with fears around very concrete or particular things. So my daughter, it was snakes, dragons, snakes. In this case, the question is around some kid who's terrified of shadows from a cartoon that they've seen a lot of times, and there's a shadow monster that chases you or whatever. Is it the shadow monster in Hello Ninja? I don't know.
Pretty scary though.
Yeah. But if they haven't seen that one, they should watch the Shadow Monster episode. But the question was, okay, so I did this thing with my son where I made him shoot aliens in a video game. With my daughter, I told her stories about dragons and snakes. Now, what do you do with a kid who has a very particular fear? And the short answer is I would lean into it and I wouldn't run away from it. I wouldn't try to avoid shadows. I wouldn't try to avoid any of that. You want to equip them with a story to face their fear. So you want to tell them lots of stories around themselves. These are stories of friends, protagonists, but also just stories starring them. Funny little adventure stories. When my kids were young, we did a lot of Wilson Kid Adventures. And they were all characters in these stories. And they went off on crazy adventures and wild things happened. But this is the kind of thing you do with your kid. So in this case, if your kid's really afraid of shadows, you start telling them stories about themselves, fighting shadows, catching shadows, training shadows, teaching shadows to be well behaved, putting shadows in their place. This is then having to be brave to do it. So you also want it to be funny. You want to get them laughing. You want to just have it be scary, but then humorous. So in this case, I recommended, a story, the kind of thing would be a shadow cowboy having lost his shadow horse. It's and you have to go catch the horse, get the cowboy back on his shadow and, let him go. But really kind of taming the thing, telling stories to your kid about them, specifically taming and overcoming the thing that they're afraid of. And carving those grooves in the imagination, those grooves of victory and those grooves of success is really huge.
Yeah, because I guess...
There goes Brian's phone.
Yeah, that's the first time.
No, come on. It's not always me.
I think it is. It's my son Henry's birthday and he got a Beowulf.
Nice.
Beowulf, so we were doing some Grendel time. And so now we have a basement
now
too.
You have Grendel fear.
Yeah, now we've got Grendel fear.
Yeah.
But for my boys, it's just been a lot of, no, you got to do it. I mean, for the age they're at, they're not so little anymore that it overpowers the emotion. Yeah. It's much more of a thing we joke about. I told Grendel not to bother you when you go downstairs. I was he's going to leave you alone.
You make it playful. But the other thing is these stories I would start by telling them in the broad light of day. These are lunchtime in the sun stories, about catching shadows or goblins or whatever it might be. But stories are powerful. And so you have to realize that when people are trapped in fear or trapped in a nightmare, they're trapped in a story. They have a particular narrative that's being told, and it's being told in their imagination, and it's recurring. And so what you have to do is recatechize the imagination with a different narrative. And you have to have the same cast. A lot of parents, our immediate reflex is to avoid shadow stories or things like that. And we actually have to tell stories with them, and putting them in their proper place and recatechize the imagination, which is run amok with whatever. You can have a kid who's terrified of rabbits. You can have I dealt with kids who were really afraid of the were-rabbit back in the day. And I think part of it was because they watched it on a black and white TV. And it would just, they watched in England and it got really scary.
Black and white would do that.
And also because their cousin, in a well-meaning way, decided to read them some of Grimm's original fairy tales right before they watched it and before they went to bed, unbeknownst to us. People getting cut up and put in boxes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, lean in, tell the story, find the thing your kid's afraid of and put it in the story and have story time at lunch with these little guys, these little imaginations. Get those imaginations catechized, not just with data and information, but with habits of picturing and imagining. Get their little eyes wide, get them to laugh, get them to be immersed in a story about them. That's going to start cutting a new groove.
I think a lot of adults are really bad at that. They've catechized themselves. That's the people who are like, I couldn't go to sleep because I was...
Fill in the blank.
Yeah, just get in.
And they've decided to give in to their imaginations in any number of ways or give in to particular weaknesses. Identify themselves with their weaknesses and their fears and almost looking for it. Oh, I'm terrified of spiders. You know what? Grow up.
Yeah.
It's
You don't need to go touch a spider, but also like,
yeah.
You can make a pretty good pet.
So we have friends. I remember when I was pretty young, I heard some horror stories about spiders. Like there's a wife who was very, very afraid of spiders. And so God saw fit to give her a lot of spider stories.
Okay.
And you have to realize like, okay, what's happening? Why is this woman who's so afraid of spiders getting so many spider stories that are just extra? I mean, extra. I mean, like hundreds of baby tarantulas hatching out of a plant in their living room. Like that kind of thing. I mean, spiders being accidentally, imported
right
into their house,
to her house,
that were large enough to like rear up and look her in the eye and make noises. It's like we're talking about a spider that you can hear when it's angry at you and it's going to chase you around the room. It's like, why is God doing that? Like, why? Like, if you've identified yourself with a fear and you said, I'm scared of swimming. I'm scared of water. I'm scared of sharks. I'm scared of spiders. I'm scared of the federal government. What is God going to give you? It's like, he's going to lean into it.
That's funny. Christy was telling us she is scared of spiders, but started
perfect
in our family. In our family, we started distinguishing because I was like, well, you can't be scared of jumping spiders because they're cute little guys with adorable mustaches. So as soon as you start distinguishing between like, oh, this kind of spider is kind of scary and this kind is just like your harmless fly eater, all of a sudden the knowledge actually helped. Although I don't know that I suppose that helps too. This kind of monster is this way. And
so we were out on a dock. I missed our normal recording time this last week because we were on a dock in Lake Coeur d'Alene, and the dock spiders come out and work every single night. They have to rebuild. So A, we have a ton of activity, and B, there's wind, there's all sorts of water. And so these dock spiders,
those big orb weavers.
Yeah, they do a lot of orbs. They're not like a cat spider orb weaver, but they're similar, like fat abdomens but these things come out and just get to work. Like as the sun's going down, they just start busting. And you can just stand there and watch all of them come out of the canopy over the boat, where the boat slip is, and start just spreading all these webs. And I mean, it's amazing. And my niece was there and she's like, oh, these are the ones with the fat, little fat bodies. And it's like, they're so creepy. They're so scary. And I told her, it's like their abdomens are fat because they're eating so many bugs for you.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you got to store a lot of silk in there too. They can't just leave the nets there and let it fill.
And they're
with
doing
grass.
this every day, and they got to eat a lot of bugs to make this a profitable endeavor for them, given how much rebuilding they're doing. And they're rebuilding on the ladder out of the water, and they're rebuilding they're just building, and it's awesome. And by morning, that's gonna all get wrecked. And they're going to go hide, and they're going to wait out the sunny part of the day. And
their bodies are going to work like crazy to turn those bugs into more silk. And then they're
going to eat like mad. And then they're going to go hide in the shadow and wait till the sun's going down and come out and get back to work, which means you can sit on the dock and not be as, eaten alive by as many mosquitoes.
I know. Every time, yellow jackets, mosquitoes, every time you go camping, you want more spiders. I want more spiders.
More bats, more spiders. More bats and spiders, please. Because bats and spiders aren't going to come eat me.
Right.
They're going to eat the things that are eating me. So anyway, contextualizing stuff in narrative is, important. And they look plenty creepy. The other thing is a spider like that in your kitchen is different than a spider like that on a dock.
Right.
It's a spider out of place.
I mean, in the bathtub or in your bed, no one likes that.
No, they kill it. It's
out of place.
Trespassing.
Yeah.
You enforce the law.
That's our job.
You enforce the law of Adam. You say, not here, spider.
Yep.
Get thee back out on the dock. Anyway, funny. What else are we talking about? This is all an answer to one question that was left neglected in my Instagram.
Yeah.
Of many. And I apologize to all the rest of you who sent me invitations for interviews and questions. And there's just like so many. And some I started replying to, and I was like, was this last year? Like, which end am I starting at? Just know that there's a certain amount of incompetence and
they got a lot of COVID questions you need
distraction.
to answer.
There were some
2 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else are we talking about today, Brian?
Well, I was wondering, I'm just been very curious about Amazon's video program, specifically with the Terminal List coming out, being tied to a book. And I thought I might pick your brain to see.
Yeah, let's talk about the Terminal List. I have an opinion.
Yeah, I want to hear it. I did watch it.
The whole show?
Yeah, I watched the whole show. It wasn't good, but I was interested as a Jason Bourne fan. I was interested to see what the genre has become, and then also to watch how it seemed. I turned into me watching to see if it ever got above itself to evaluate whether what this guy was doing was good or bad or had any consequences on anything besides. Because it's a show that's pitched about justice, in my opinion. He's trying to get vengeance. But what we all but what we all know about those kind of vengeance shows is it takes a cost, and you dig 2 graves, one for yourself and one for the person. And the Terminal List, I kept waiting for it to evaluate itself and say, "Hey, is what I'm doing bad in some way? Does it take a cost?" Yeah. And it never once in the first season.
It's not like Munich,
right?
Where it's like, okay, so these Israeli Olympians were murdered. And we put together this team of people to go exact vengeance, and yet the toll on them is heavily explored. Spielberg, explores that thoroughly.
I was blown away that that the show never asked that fundamental question of, can you brutally execute human after human and have it not affect you?
Right.
Anyways, I was curious what your take on the Terminal List is.
So as was just mentioned, we're at the leg last week or earlier this week. And so my son came back from school. We have all 5 kids under one roof. His sisters visited him in New York. They had their little adventures, and then they came back out and met us right at the lake. So they hadn't been on the way home yet. It was like our first, okay, we're consolidated. This is a summer break. And all 5 kids are here, which means we need a new show. Because we need to sync up. So if we're chipping through something, I'm chipping through something with these kids, if I'm chipping through something with those kids, like different arrangements of the deck of my 5 offspring. And so I grab Terminal List and set filters and VidAngels. So it's like, great, we'll try this new one. We watched the first episode. We watched the pilot, and everyone hated it.
Yeah.
So from the 12-year-old to the 20-year-old, everybody hated it. And there was this disdain. We didn't even get into all the vengeance, right? There was a hatred of the unreliable narrator. They hated that. They hated the severity, the humorlessness.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, but it's a tragedy. It's like, sure. And yet humans are humans. And the mannishness of man exists in all situations. And so it was just this very self-serious, severe, earnest, unreliable narrator exploration.
Yeah.
Like gaslighting, psychological break. This is what we're exploring, but there's no joy anywhere, no humor anywhere, not just nothing.
For a soldier show, you'd expect there to be pretty good at gallows humor.
You'd hope. And
so need that there.
I actually pivoted. It's funny because I told them nobody wanted to watch episode 2. Nobody did, which is an ultimate failure of a pilot.
Mm-hmm. Kind of the one job.
Yeah. And here I am, 43-year-old dad, and my wife is not interested. So there's one demographic missed. We're out. Okay, so you missed Gen X. Gen X is out. And then we get jumped down to the 20-year-old and then down all the way through the 12-year-old. So 20-year-old boy, 18-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl, 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
12-year-old girl, 15-year-old boy had been told that it was awesome. The show's awesome. And, so by his peers of his age group, violence, manhood, intensity, yada, yada.
Right.
And the response was from 100%, the jury came back.
It's not awesome.
This is not awesome. I don't want to spend 40 more minutes of my life even thinking about these characters or the situation. We're just out. And so then I thought I was talking to a buddy on the phone who was helping me with this with notes on a pilot script for a show, and we're talking about different shows and elements and important ingredients and all these things. And I'd been thinking, like, what is an example of fantastic television? Like, I really want to find, like, what's the fantastic TV, fantastic storytelling? Because I don't want to give them just another sucky example. Like, we've done that. With the two younger ones, we just tried to
not your buddy, but your kids.
My kids.
Yeah.
And so I was having this conversation about my own pilot script, and so thinking about the important ingredients in a pilot, having just seen what I thought was a complete failure of one. And I realized, I was like, oh man, like, they've never seen Lost.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that.
And so it's like, the pilot episode, the 2-part pilot of Lost is one of the best ever made. It's fantastic. And the show holds up really, really well for quite a while in many ways. So there's a lot of episodes there if we want to, enjoy this. But part of that was, for me, the thing that jumped out when I was thinking back on Lost was the humanity of the characters and the humanity of the characters in crisis.
Yep.
So they're still human beings. And so I turned it on, and I actually did what I normally don't do. I actually kind of hyped my kids up to it. And I was like, okay, so pay close attention. This is one of the best pilots ever made. This is one of the best pilot episodes of any show ever. And just pay attention, like, pay close attention and distinguish it from what you just saw.
Yeah.
In Terminalist. I want you to think about camera technique, what you see in terms of, like, what are the cameras doing? What are the characters doing? What's it doing to your affections? Like the mechanism of the story. And they were all blown away. Like, it actually, even with me having set the bar there, we watched the pilot episode of Lost, and they were, from the 12-year-old to the 20-year-old, amazingly impressed all the way in.
That probably helps, right, though, to say, hey, you're watching, you're about to eat a good steak.
Yeah.
Don't just wolf it.
Yeah, which just means I can't be wrong.
Right.
Right? So it is, in fact, one of the best pilots ever made. And so we watched the first 2 episodes, the 2 parts of the pilot, and then we start talking. We're talking about what's going on, and the laughter, the smiles, the joking, the retained humanity. So here's a very far-fetched fantasy story, right?
Yeah. I have to say, I've never seen it. I missed the boat. So all my friends were 4 seasons in.
No, this is ideal, because I actually don't think the show was as strong until you could just kind of, like, clip through. So it's like, okay, there's 122 episodes of the show now.
Yeah. Okay.
The whole show. So which means when it kind of falters, it's actually pretty easy to be like, skipping. Let's jump, like, whatever. It's like kind of
I see.
Track it, kind of stay ahead and kind of track the narrative. You don't have to sit there at the once a week, drum beat, or go rent the DVDs and
really luxuriate in it.
You can watch it free on Amazon Prime. You can watch it with ads.
Yeah.
For free on Amazon, or you can get your free trial to Hulu and and chip through it. But it's really interesting, because the thing that jumped out to them, and the thing that I really, really respected and admired watching it again, it had been years and years, and my wife did not enjoy it. She doesn't like stressful, like, just the stress of it bothers her. But watching it again, the thing it's so impressive is, this is what I tell fantasy novelists all the time. It's like, the way you sell fantasy is with realism. Always realism, realistic characters, real humanity, visceral sensation. Then you can actually suspend that disbelief and carry people much further.
Yeah.
And the realism of these characters, the realisticness of these characters, the spectrum of these characters, from the harsh Korean couple in this marriage, to the spoiled California girl, to
Sawyer, Locke, all these guys. I haven't even seen it, and I remember them and know their character, which is very interesting.
Yeah. And so Locke is a perfect example, because here's people on a beach, and it's like chaos and mayhem, and he's just standing there smiling. And then there's a woman and she's in a stressful situation. She looks up and he turns and he smiles an orange peel at her. He has an orange slice in his mouth. And it's like, and there's like a burning fuselage over there. And this is actually what people are like. This is like human beings are caught in their own little sensation in their own little moments. And so the exploration later of what was going on for Locke in those moments is fantastic. And we've now watched, I think, 5 episodes with my kids, and they're loving the exploration of the characters. My oldest is pointing out the genius of having 47 characters, most of whom are never seen. So they have the ability to just like pull people from the background, pull them forward, and it just gives the longevity to the show that they could suddenly go into this person's story because this person also has a human story that also got them onto this plane and this plane crash. And
well, you'll be happy to know that Terminal List had nowhere to go because they didn't have that big cast, and then the final bad guy, spoiler, is his friend.
Yeah, of course, obviously. Yeah.
So
because there's only so many options,
right? And once you get back all the way up to the generals, there still has to be another reveal because we've all seen the general being the bad guy, and then he has to have it be his buddy, and then all of a sudden
reveal, and so in this case, you have a magical island with all these inexplicable things going on, but the people are being real. Like the humanity is very, very real, and that enables you to believe in this island and believe in the weirdness of the island because of how concrete and real these characters are. Where Terminal List, none of those characters are real humans. There's no humanity. Now I'm only going off the pilot episode.
Right.
There's no humanity in any of them.
Well, that's why I kept watching almost. My wife would fall asleep every night but I was curious to see if it could get a human moment in there, like a moment of, hey, that's real.
And the only human moment was the human moment of you watching it persistently.
Just being like,
it's like, which is exactly, that is a human moment. Like, because the guy sitting on the couch with his wife asleep while he's watching a show quietly unto himself and saying, this sucks. And then
everyone's like, why are you watching
it? And then plays the next episode. That's human. Like that's humanity. Like, why am I like, we've all put a Dorito in our mouths and be like, why am I still eating this? It's like, we've all been there.
Well, there's only 8 of them. So I can make 8.
Yeah, I can get through 8 of them. My wife's asleep. I need something in my brain. And so that's
well, here's a question.
That's an exactly human moment. That character is human. The characters in that show are not. Like, they're just not.
See, Chris Pratt normally would fit perfectly in something. Well, that's a question. If they switched in someone who wasn't Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt's best role ever was still Andy on Parks and Rec.
Exactly. So could an actor have fixed Terminal List?
No.
No way. Not even a little bit.
No, unless, here's the thing, though. The best actor saving the franchise story I have is Johnny Depp.
Oh, with Pirates?
Yeah, playing Captain Jack. Now, if you go remove all of his mannerisms, remove this very drunk, very like effeminate drunk, but hilarious pirate.
Yeah.
The way he runs, the way his hands are going,
his eyeshadow.
You remove all of his performance and have somebody play that role straight and play and say those lines.
So bad.
Yeah, it's incredibly bad. So you look at Orlando Bloom's character and Keira Knightley's character and these other characters, and it's all so deadly earnest. It's just so earnest. And then Captain Jack, he tapped into something that just made the whole thing funny. And because he didn't need other people to be doing that, like, he was the hero and the foil at the same time. And so he brought a levity and a joy to something that otherwise would have been really bad.
Unspeakably over serious.
Yeah. So in the context of like Terminal List, no, you couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't have been the silly drunk guy.
From Parks and Rec. Yeah.
They couldn't have done that. And so the way Johnny Depp did in Pirates of the Caribbean. So it's not something a performance could have carried or a performance pivot could have carried. It just, like, every character there needed to be human and they weren't.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And so that's this is true of novels. This is true, like fantasy novelists and people who write high fantasy get sucked into earnestness and seriousness and self-seriousness of like, no, you don't understand. I'm trying to write this very important work. I need to convince you that this character is as noble as Aragorn.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the thing that works for Aragorn is that he's irritable, tired,
and unsure of himself actually for quite a while.
Yep. And not good looking. Just not good looking, but capable, but not good looking, smoking a pipe, long legs. It's like, he's tired. He's this tired guy. And with his exhausting burden and these hobbits, which are the laugh track and the humor, they are the foils kind of come into his life. And if there hadn't been hobbits, it would just been Aragorn and no hobbits. And he headed off that severe kind of unattractive guy with a destiny. It would have been really problematic. Like the importance of the hobbit behavior and the humanity of the hobbits being hungry at Isengard, needing to smoke and eat. And like, that's this burning urge they have. Like trees have come to life and attacked a fortress and torn it down. And what's the number one thing they're thinking about is tobacco and food.
Yeah.
Like they've just borne witness to something crazy. And the human urges of these non-human characters is what makes the whole thing immersive and believable.
Right. Because Aragorn also, though, I think that gives him a chance to fail. Too many of these fantasy characters are just really, really cool guys from the very beginning. But Aragorn finishes and starts Two Towers saying, every single decision I've made has been bad.
Yep.
And that gives you a movement for him, as opposed to him just dropping in as this knight that can kick butt,
Yep. And so it's all the characters are real in Lord of the Rings. They're all real. And that's another example of believing the world. The whole world is believable because their sensations, their reactions, their humor in inappropriate moments, like those things are very, very real and very, very true of humanity.
Who do you think drives the action at the beginning of Lost? Like those pilot episodes?
Yeah.
Who are the two, or what's the piston?
Jack and Kate start out, but Jack especially. And we don't circle back and explore his character until about episode 4 or 5, but there's tons of room. They gave themselves so much room.
Yeah.
With these, this cast crashing on this island. And then they do it really, really well. So it's like these characters are all people people and real psychologies and so on. Locke is probably the most far-fetched.
Right.
And yet the realism of his quirks and his tics, it causes you to forgive all of it. You're along.
And there's a hobbit in Lost too, right? Dominic.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is.
Pippin's there. Yeah.
Or is it Mary?
Charlie with the drugs.
Mary.
No, he plays Pippin, I'm pretty sure. I honestly don't know. I didn't finish the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
There you go.
Either I did or it's possible that I did.
Your memory's scrubbed.
But I just blacked it out as a dark day.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into the theater for Fellowship of the Ring and thinking, I want this to be either so bad that I can remake it someday, or so amazing that I don't need to. And it was neither. It was like the worst. It's like so bad to me, but not to the marketplace. Like the marketplace adored it.
Yeah. Well, have you watched the latest Rings of Power trailers?
No. I've watched one. I can't. You sent me one. A bunch of people have sent me the new trailer. I can't do that.
They're bad.
I can't do it. I don't know where all the money went, but I cannot do it.
It's truly incredible.
We did a whole episode talking about where all the money went, but it's
yeah.
I don't understand. It's complete schlock.
I think it comes out in September, so we'll have our watch party at that point.
I can't wait to not watch it.
We'll watch it on camera.
I've never seen the Hobbit movies.
I made that one I was able to give up on. I started it.
Good. Well done, you, Brian.
Look, I can. It's not terminal list start to finish, just all the way down.
Just get it down.
That was very much, I realized, a flavor thing. That's like that action. You're chasing having watched Jason Bourne for the first time as a 14-year-old.
Yeah, sure.
You're like, oh, I am now older. And
I'm older than this now. This sucks.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between a Mel Gibson movie that works and a Mel Gibson movie that doesn't,
oh, okay.
Is the humanity of the character. And if they just kind of veer off into that retribution, like punishment, destruction, retribution, movie like Payback versus a movie like The Patriot.
Okay. I was just thinking Lethal Weapon and Patriot, both of those.
Yeah. So if you go with Patriot, you go with Payback, I think it is.
Okay.
Just straight up revenge movie starring Mel.
Yeah.
Versus a revenge movie starring Mel. It's like they're both,
one is good and one is bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have the same talented actor.
Yeah.
Obviously different settings. One's period, American Revolution. The other is kind of gangstery. One's, explores it in an interesting way and explores what that does to his humanity. So there's one famous scene in The Patriot where he's just eviscerating a guy
with the hatchet. Yeah.
Yeah. And he looks up and sees his daughter.
Our son watching his 14-year-old.
His child.
Yeah.
His daughtery son.
Yeah. He does look. You're like, I think in the Revolutionary era, they all look the same. That's what we're going to grant him.
Yeah.
That.
He's not wearing a petticoat. But so what I remember as a viewer is I don't remember what Mel saw. So I don't remember which character was standing there when Mel looks up and sees. I remember the guilt.
His face is splattered with blood.
Yeah, I remember him looking up, and I remember what that kid saw because that's what I saw. So as the viewer, I'm supposed to be inhabiting that child's POV and seeing this rage consume him as he's like covered in this guy's blood, and then looks up, and there's this like weird moment. Of
just, I mean, that was a small scene. And that tiny moment made it real.
Yep.
That a whole,
he came unglued in a completely believable way, but it comes with shame.
Right.
Like even a like totally justified killing.
Yeah.
Him having crossed this line.
I'm sure from the pilot of Terminal List, you saw the weapon that would come in later. That's kind of the little hatchets that he puts in his bag. Yeah. So he eviscerates a guy with the hatchets, right? Same scene, same way, utterly zero shame. Very much just, this is the most badass thing you could possibly do. Yeah. And as a viewer, you're thinking, are you for real?
Yeah.
Like you've just crossed a line into badness. There's
a lot of activity behind Mel Gibson's eyes as an actor. I mean, he can really
that's true.
Throw some hurricanes up there. Like he can have a lot going on in the intensity like behind his eyes. And a director friend who has directed him told me that. It's like, man, his eyes are wild too. It's like, I've seen that as a viewer, but it's like, but when you go take to take, the variation, like where it's just like,
yeah, he's got that surprise and the like,
that what he can slide past his eyeballs behind his eyes is pretty intense. There's a lot of variation there.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's so like Patriot versus Payback versus Terminal List.
Yeah.
Like revenge stories, I can be completely fine with. Right. I have no problem with a revenge story, but an amoral revenge story, and also even if it's a morally justified revenge story, a justice story, leaving that exploration of your own conscience, your own destruction unexplored is really moronic. So King David was not allowed to build the temple. It's like he's not, like it will do something to you. And that's not just because of Uriah. It's like that's.
Yeah, I mean, it said he's a man of blood.
Yeah.
And
it's not, you killed a bro. Blood. No, it's just a man of blood.
You're a killer.
Yeah.
Then that changes you somehow. Now, not to jump too far sideways, but the guys in the office, we brought up Fantastic Fox, which is also
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, yeah.
Where
there's also a bit of a revenge story.
Genius.
But
the cuss you will, the cuss you won't.
The dialogue. And I guess, why don't we mind that Fantastic Mr. Fox gets away with it?
I don't think it does all the way. I think there's a reason why it didn't do as well as it could have.
Okay. So you think that it didn't really explore the nature of him being as much of... I've also heard from those who've read the book that the movie actually improved on the book a good bit.
I think the movie's really fun.
Yeah.
But it doesn't blow up. It didn't become what it could have given its cast, given its platform, it didn't resonate.
And one of those first stop animation features.
Because it's really fun to watch. It is actually fun to watch. It's not just it's not just, oh, we're doing stop motion for the festivals. Mm-hmm. Like it was this commercial play, and you've got really talented voice actors and a lot of comedy. Mm-hmm. And it's, it's a classic. It kind of sits there, but it never did what it could have, I think, if it had resonated on a different level. Whereas like a Finding Nemo, my kids just rewatched 2 of them on a drive. And so my wife and I listened to it again. And, and it was very much part of the childhood of our older batch of kids. And our younger 2 were rewatching it. They've obviously seen it a lot. And they're watching it with more intelligent eyes and more experience, that they were just being profoundly shocked at how good it is. Like, this is such a good movie. This is really, really good. They didn't realize in childhood how good it is and how much it holds up. Mm-hmm. It just scene to scene to scene, sequence to sequence. Yeah, that right there.
Sequence. You never head into a new Nemo scene kind of not sure where it's going to go or whether you want to be there. And that's like bad TV. You head into the next scene not really caring.
Yeah.
But with Nemo, every single one, you're meeting the sharks, you're meeting the turtles, you're meeting,
and it's all carried by, Marlin's the least interesting character, but like the foils and the comedy and like to have it be heartfelt.
He's us, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to be so interesting.
Yeah. So he's the parents, and so you have this really heartfelt story. But it's carried by the hilarity of Dory and that frustration, and then every different crew you meet. And think about the genius that's shown even in the Ray school teacher singing at the outset. It's like just, and the running gag for clownfish is, and that carrying you all the way to the seagulls doing mine. Like it just, it's so good and it's so strong to the ecosystem of the Dennis Aquarium and the dynamics of those characters.
Yeah.
Played against the dynamics of Dory and Nemo, Marlin meeting Bruce and, going through the sharks and everything else and the turtles and so on. So, I mean, it is just rock solid. It is a rock solid movie. And it's fun to go back and watch stuff like that. It doesn't matter if it's for little kids or for grown-ups, a rock solid movie, Chariots of Fire, Finding Nemo, like a rock solid movie is just a joy.
Yeah.
It's a joy to watch when everything hangs together and it's all working towards one end, and it feels organic and natural. So it's like a tree growing, but it's not, it's all by design. It's heavily gardened, but it has this organic, natural progression.
So that's what you're saying is missing from Fantastic Mr. Fox. It didn't quite resonate, meaning that you don't think Clooney's character interacting with his son is.
I think it's a little more jaded and cynical, but it's more about destination. So it's like, okay, so it's executed with a high level of ability, high level of technical value and talent and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But where is it going?
Right.
And to what end, and what kind of chord is it trying to play?
That's a great point, because at the end, it does end up with them in a supermarket owned by the 2 of them, and it's all about to start over again.
Yeah,
it's kind of, they went nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
then that's where the vengeance doesn't pay. He doesn't have to pay for it.
Yeah,
except by losing his tail, I guess.
So Fantastic Mr. Fox, we've enjoyed watching it, but honestly, like Nemo is so strong, like Incredibles. Like there's a few of those that were just, that they snuck out before they all lost their will to live. They're still exploring more primal parental fears. They're still exploring those things. I think that's when they were at their peak, and that one is just magnificent. And then jumping over to Lost, I can say the same thing about the opening season. The opening season of Lost is just so well done.
Well, there we go. I think we'll have to explore. I'm curious at some point to explore some classic Disney and see how much is just, it's so famous that we think it's good.
Yeah.
And it's actually not. But I don't know.
Yeah.
No, Nate's okay. That's a no.
I don't know. I don't know that we will. We'll go where the spirit leads, Brian.
Oh, there we go.
This has been, I mean, that might be where it leads. Who knows?
Well, we still got to get to your other idea.
Sometimes you are an agent of the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say usually when we're recording a podcast. So this has been episode 81 of SAS.
Another pleasant
stories are in fact soul food.
40 minutes.
Eat well.
Next week.
Well, make you well.
Hi, it's Brian Cole here, wanting to let you know how you can support the Stories Are Soul Food podcast. You can do that by checking out Canon Plus. Head over to mycanonplus.com. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the SASF podcast. We'll hopefully be seeing you at mycanonplus.com.